Hello and welcome to a new ship tour. Today we're taking a look at the AIDAprima, cruise ship of AIDA Cruises, and as always we're starting with a few general facts. The ship is 300 meters long, 37.65 meters wide, has a gross tonnage of 125,572 and over 900 crew members take care of her around 3,300 passengers. If all beds are used, she can even take up to 4,300 passengers on board. She was taken into service in 2016 and she's part of the Hyperion class, which consists of only two ships, AIDAprima and AIDA Perla. Those are the only two ships that have not been built at the Meyer Werft, Meyer shipyard, but at the Japanese Mitsubishi Heavy Industries shipyard in Nagasaki. As always, we're starting our ship tour on the lowest deck possible, and that's deck number 3. There we have exits, and we have the onboard hospital and the conference room, and there's also already the first bar, the Pier 3 Market, which is serving Starbucks coffee. Pier 3 is intended as a meeting point before excursions and before private shore leave, so it's the ideal meeting point for meeting with friends before heading ashore, and therefore it's also mostly open when the ship is docked in a port, and of course also only when the exit is on deck 3. Here we can see it on the pictures as well. As always, I'm including pictures in my ship tour as well, because some parts are not fully illuminated early in the morning and the pictures are a bit easier to edit, so we can still see a little bit more when it's still dark in an area, because as always I'm doing my ship tour quite early in the morning. Usually I'm starting around 5:30 when all other passengers are still sleeping. Here we are at the reception area, which is one of those areas that were still dark, so here on the video it's difficult to see something. But here on the picture we can see the reception a bit better. The reception can only be reached from deck 3 and from the front staircase on deck 4. Here we can see the front staircase of deck 4, and that's already it for decks 3 and 4, and also on deck 5 there's nothing I can show you because there are otherwise only cabins. So now we can straight away head up to deck number 6, which is one of the most important decks, as it is one of two decks with only public areas. We're starting at the front staircase, but we're heading to the rear part of the ship first, and then we're turning around going to the front. So we're now already in the heart of the ship, which is the Theatrium. If you have seen my other videos about the ships of AIDA, you know a Theatrium is a combination of a theater and an atrium. That's quite typical for AIDA, and around this Theatrium there are several bars. Here we've seen the Prima bar, and here we can see the Theatrium. A Theatrium has its ups and downs. One of the ups is that you can join and leave a show whenever you want. It doesn't feel awkward to leave a show if you don't like it. In a theater it always feels a bit strange to leave, but here you can come and go whenever you want. But that also means that there's always a bit of background noise in the theater, so that might be a bit disturbing and disruptive. And also another downside is that many important bars are located around the Theatrium, so there are always also people that don't want to watch the show but just want to have a drink and chat, so that's also a downside of the Theatrium. In the meantime, we've reached the East Restaurant, which is one of the main buffet restaurants. As you may know, it is very typical for AIDA to have a lot of buffet restaurants, more than any other German cruise line. Early on it was almost impossible to have dinner without paying extra, not in the form of a buffet, but nowadays there are a few options here on AIDAprima. For example, we have the Casanova, which we can see here. This is an Italian a la carte restaurant which is included in the cruise fare, but you need to make a reservation, and I would highly recommend doing that as soon as you book your cruise, as those restaurants are usually having a quite high demand. They're almost always fully booked. It is possible to book them on board, but I would highly recommend booking as early as possible from home, so you can make sure that you got your table for your requested time. In the buffet restaurants, some drinks are already included. In those restaurants, like the Casanova, you have to pay for your drinks. But that of course also depends on the fare you've booked, and if you have booked all-inclusive or not. Right next to it we have a buffet restaurant, also an Italian restaurant just like Casanova. This is the Bella Donna restaurant, smaller buffet restaurant, together with the Fuego, the smallest on board. But also here you can see the typical design, which is quite typical for AIDA. to design the restaurants according to the theme of the restaurant. So here it looks a bit Italian, as it is an Italian themed buffet restaurant. And then we're coming to the most important restaurant on board, the biggest restaurant on board, which is very typical for AIDA, the Marktrestaurant, which means market restaurant. It is also designed like a market, and it comes with a fantastic view as it is right at the aft of the ship with big panoramic windows overlooking the sternway of the ship. As you can see, the buffet is in a very nice design. It looks like a market. It is also quite nicely designed, so usually you can only queue from 2 sides. That means it works quite well. Been on ships with buffets in an island style, so you can queue from 4 sides, and that can be a bit chaotic from time to time. But here on the AIDAprima, it works quite well with the buffet. The buffet is also quite big with a lot of choices, so it is a quite nice buffet restaurant. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of buffet restaurants, I have to admit that it works pretty well here on AIDA, also on the AIDAprima. But still, I would prefer the a la carte options, and you will see that there are also quite a few here on board. So in a time lapse we are now going through the Theatrium again, and here we are in the East restaurant again on the other side. So also the East restaurant is a quite big restaurant. It's the second biggest buffet restaurant after the market restaurant. And now we're back in the Theatrium, walking through it again, and here we have the next bar. This is the casino bar, still in the atrium, but right in front of the casino, which we will see next. Maybe you know that Germans are not very keen on going into a casino, so on a lot of German ships there's no casino at all. And if there's one, it's much smaller than on international ships. For a German ship, this casino is pretty spacious, and I was quite surprised to see a lot of people using it. That's also not very typical, but here a lot of people were using the casino, and it was bigger than I expected it, bigger than on most other German cruise ships. But of course, compared to an international or American ship, it is very small. Through the casino, we're now getting to the AIDA Plaza, and there we can firstly take a look at the jewelry shop called Juwelier. But first we can see a picture of the casino, and now we're turning around, and here on the right side we have the jewelry shop, and we can already see the design of the AIDA Plaza. Here on the left side we have Pixel's Fotowelt. This is their smaller shop. There's a bigger shop which we will see later in the video, but here you can buy the pictures that the photographers are taking during the cruise. Here we can take a look into the jewelry store, and after that we can see the AIDA Plaza. AIDA Plaza is my least favorite part of the ship because, to me, to be honest, it feels a bit like a small town shopping center, but not like a cruise ship. It's quite wide, and yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the design. But there are quite a few nice locations here in the AIDA Plaza, like the tapas and bar. So as the name implies, here you can get some drinks and some small tapas. And also here we have the most important hidden entrance, let's call it like that, of the ship. Here we have the entrance to the night fly bar. The night fly bar is not a disco but a nightclub. So here we have different themed evenings. It's only open in the evening and the night. But you can always access it, because through the night fly bar you can access a hidden but fantastic part of the ship. One of my favorite parts and one of the highlights of AIDAprima. So it's important to remember this area. If you're boarding AIDAprima, remember to go through the night fly bar, which we can see here, to get through this door, which we can see here in the front. And through this door you can access the spray bar. The spray bar is not the highlight, but from the spray bar you can get to the highlight. So as you can see, it's quite hidden, but the spray bar itself is also pretty nice. As you can see here right now, it is a completely white bar, and the location is very unique because we're in the bow of the ship. This is an area that on almost no other cruise ship is accessible to guests, but here it's used for public areas. There's maybe 5, maximum 10 meters in front of us. We're in the bow of the ship, and here we have this stunning white bar. And by the way, those chairs are much more comfortable than you would expect. It is a champagne bar, but of course you can get also some other drinks here. It has 2 stories, even though usually it's not very crowded because it is so hidden that most passengers walk past it without actually acknowledging that it exists. If you would not take a look at the deck plan, you would not know that there's this bar, but it is quite beautiful. And now we're coming to the hidden part. Of course, first we're gonna take a look down to the lower deck of the spray bar, but you can see that there are some doors. There's a sign usually down on the lower deck, which already tells you whether this area that I'm going to show you now is open or not. In the night it was still closed, so we're jumping to the day, and here we have the most important door. As you can see, there are 2 doors on the left and on the right. If one is closed, but the sign down below says this area is open, try the other one. Usually only one of them is open, depending from which side the wind is coming. And here we have this small outer area. So maybe it doesn't look too spectacular to you right now, but remember where we are. We are in the bow of the ship. So this part here in the front is actually the foremost point of the ship. So you can take a look down here and you can see this is the bow of the ship. We are right at the front of the ship. So this is a fantastic area, and when it's open, especially when you're leaving a port or going through some spectacular landscape, this is a fantastic place to be. So as you can see, it's quite hidden. You have to go through Nightfly, into the spray bar, up the stairs, and then you have the entrance to this fantastic outdoor area. A unique area, and I think there's no other cruise ship with an area like this. Very important to remember how to get there. Here we are in the AIDA Plaza again. I think you can see why I'm not the biggest fan of this area. It looks a bit, as I said, like a shopping center in a small town, but there are some quite nice locations, like the spray bar with this viewing platform right at the bow of the ship, but also the D6 disco. This is the proper disco on board. It's much bigger than on other AIDA ships, so it is a perfect occasion for a good party in the late evening and in the night. There's a big dance floor, but also some seating areas. So for me, a perfect nightclub, a perfect disco. Depending on the cruise, it will be more or less busy. On a party cruise that I was on a short cruise, usually I think it will be quite busy in the evening and in the night. But on longer cruises, yeah, sometimes it might also not be too busy. So we are now back in the AIDA Plaza, and here we have the scharfe Ecke, that means sharp corner, but in German, scharf means sharp, but also spicy, so it's also the spicy corner, because this is the area where you can get some German currywurst, curry sausage, very traditional German dish or snack, which you can get here almost all day long. And right next to it, we have the travel shop where you can get all those things you might have forgotten at home, or you realize during the cruise that you need them, like sunscreen, sunglasses, snacks, toothpaste, and things like that. And that means that we have now seen all public areas on deck 6, and we can now continue up to deck 7, another important deck with only public areas. This time we're taking a look at the front part first. Here we have an excursion area. Here you can book your excursion. As always, I would recommend doing that at home as soon as possible, because the good excursions are usually sold out quite quickly. So if you want to do a special excursion, I would recommend booking it as soon as possible. But if you want to book something spontaneously, or you have some questions about excursions, you can come here and they will help you. In front of it we have the ice bar. As the name implies, you can get some nice ice cream here. And directly opposite we have the so-called Fernweh-Experten. Fernweh is a quite German word. Basically it's the opposite of being homesick, meaning the desire to go abroad. And those are the experts of that feeling. So the crew that's working there are of course those crew members that will sell your next cruise or answer your questions about other cruises of AIDA Cruises. Right in front of it we have an official Lego store, so here you can buy some Lego products. If you're traveling with children, be aware Lego got extremely expensive, so make sure that you always have an eye on your kids when they are in this store. For example, you can buy a Lego Titanic, which costs more than 600 euros, so Lego is extremely expensive, so be very careful when you're in this shop with your children. In front of that we have one of my favorite areas on the ship and my favorite gym at sea. This is the biggest gym I've ever been at on a cruise ship. It has a huge selection of sports equipment, both for endurance and for strength, so It is fantastic, huge area. On my cruise, it was never busy. There was always enough space available. That's of course because I was on a short cruise and I was mainly going there in the evening when most other passengers are in the restaurants or already starting their party of the evening. But it is quite big, huge and spacious, so there should always be enough space. Here we are in the AIDA Plaza again. Once again, I think you get what I mean by it looks a little bit like in a small town shopping center with those white tiles, white walls. It is just missing a bit of color, so I'm personally not the biggest fan of this area. Here in this area you can find a perfume store, you can find a nail studio, and there's also a hairdresser available. And also from here you can access the biggest shop of the ship, which is the AIDA Shopping Welt, which means shopping world. And there you can buy all kinds of clothing, you can buy sunglasses as well, just like in the travel shop. You can buy a lot of AIDA logo articles. They have a lot of AIDA merchandise, so it is a quite big shopping area. Of course it was still closed, as I already mentioned. I'm doing my ship tours very early in the morning. Usually I'm starting around 5:30, 6 o'clock when all other passengers are still sleeping, so the most public areas are still closed. But the reason for that is quite simple. I'm not allowed to show other people without their consent. So if I would do this ship tour during the day, I would have to ask all passengers that are visible if they are okay with it, or I have to blur all those passengers. And later on we will see how that looks when we get to the beach club, because there were already a lot of people around and I had to blur them. So we will see that it's not looking so nicely. So I'm doing this ship tour early in the morning when there are no other passengers, or almost no other passengers. That means some parts are still closed, but we can take a better look at the ship. So now we're back in the atrium and we can see the Cafe Mare, another bar cafe here in the atrium area, the Theatrium area to be precise. We can also take a look at the theater part of the Theatrium. We're now on the second deck. Also from here you have nice views, but I have to say that the capacity of the Theatrium is lower than in a regular theater usually. Of course there are no reservations, so it's on a first come first served basis. So if you want to watch a show with a good view, I would recommend arriving there a lot earlier than the show starts to make sure you get a good view. So that's one of the downs of the Theatrium. Here we have the other entrance to the AIDA Shopping World, and right next to it we have the Hemingway Lounge, which is supposed to be the library on board, but also here there were no books at all. Also on my last cruise on AIDA Nova there were no books when I did my ship tour, and as I'm usually not using the library on board, I've only been there once, and that was during my ship tour early in the morning, so I'm not sure if they will bring the books later on, but I doubt it. So I think there are just simply no books in the library. Here we are in the art gallery, which is one big part together with the Pixels photo world, so the bigger part of the photo shop on board, where you can buy the pictures that the photographers are taking of you during the cruise, for example at the gangway or on embarkation. But there are also some photo shootings on board you can enroll to, of course, if you want. So this is the area for pictures on board here. It's quite big and spacious. There are some printed pictures, but of course there are also some screens to take a look at the pictures digitally. So I think they will only showcase already ordered pictures or some landscape pictures here, but unordered pictures can be seen at the screens. Here we have another desk of the Fernweh-Experten, so the future cruise desk, and some more parts of the art gallery. Now we're coming to the rear part of the ship again, and that means we're coming to the restaurant areas. Here we can already see the French kiss, but before taking a look at the French kiss, we are taking a look at the smallest restaurant on board, and that's the vegan restaurant. It's the first ship of AIDA with a vegan restaurant. I haven't visited it on this cruise, but I visited on my AIDA Nova cruise, and there I was quite surprised by how good it actually was. For a surcharge you can have also vegan breakfast here. You can also book this for your whole cruise, and as you can see it's a pretty small but a very beautiful restaurant. We're heading back to the French Kiss, and AIDAprima was the first cruise ship of AIDA Cruises to have the French Kiss restaurant, which is another included a la carte restaurant. It usually has a very high demand, so I highly recommend as soon as you booked your cruise, make sure to reserve your table here at the French Kiss restaurant. Food is included, drinks usually have to be paid. depending on the cruise fare and whether you've booked all-inclusive or not. As I said, I would highly recommend making the reservation for your table in the French Kiss as soon as possible. Take a look at the schedule. So I would always recommend, for example, booking your table 1 or 2 hours after departure or an hour before departure, so you're not missing the sail away, especially if it's a beautiful port. Or if you want to watch a show, you can book a table at 6 o'clock, so you're not going to miss the show in the evening. But usually, to have the free choice of times, I would book as soon as possible. If you missed your chance and it's already fully booked in advance, you can also still book on board, but then I would recommend as soon as you board the ship, go in the AIDA app and make your reservation then, because also those available tables for a reservation on board are usually sold out pretty quickly. Here we can see the so-called Brauhaus, that's the brewery, and it's actually a brewery on board. They brew their own beer here on board, and you can drink this here in the Brauhaus. It's not only an included restaurant. You cannot make a reservation for it, but usually there's enough space. It's included in a combination of buffet and a la carte, but it is also a party location in the evening. There are a lot of parties in the Brauhaus, so also quite a nice restaurant. And now we're in the next buffet restaurant. This is the Weite Welt Restaurant, Wide World Restaurant. And as you can see, it already looks like the yacht club on the newer AIDA ships. It still has the old name, but it has already the look of the new restaurant. So on the old ships, the Sphinx class ships, unless they have already received the AIDA Evolution, there is the Weite Welt restaurant. And on the newer ships, it's the Yacht Club. Here we still have the old name, but already the new look. It's also a quite big buffet restaurant, also with an outdoor area. And right behind it, we have one of the nicest outdoor areas of the ship, which is the Lanai Bar. The Lanai Bar is always the bar at the aft of the ship, overlooking the stern wave, and it's also the lowest outdoor bar of the ship. So here you're pretty close to the ocean, and for me it's my favorite outdoor bar. You have a nice view. It's quite big and spacious, but especially during sail away, it will still be busy. So for a good view, you should go there a bit earlier than the actual departure time. This is also part of the promenade. It's not a walk around promenade, but at least at the rear part of the ship you can walk around the ship. And now we can go up to deck 8, just following the promenade up to deck 8. And the promenade is always a bit of a problem on newer ships. As you can see, we have the cabins you can look directly into. In Germany we have the derogative name Spannerkabine for those cabins. That could be translated to peeping Tom cabin, because you can actually directly look into those cabins and the balconies have no privacy at all. And also the view is blocked by the promenade, so you're not looking at the ocean, you're looking at the promenade, especially on those cabins here on deck 8. But also in the cabins above deck 8, you do not directly look at the ocean, but you're looking at the promenade and the ocean behind it. I'm not a fan of that. I do want to have a direct view of the ocean. I do not want to look down on the promenade, because also people from the promenade can look up to my balcony, so there's less privacy, the view is a bit obstructed, and there can also be some noises from the promenade. So I personally prefer those cabins with a balcony that most people do not like. I like those cabins on deck 5. They are below the promenade, so they have a direct view of the ocean. The balcony is partly metal covered, but I also prefer that actually, and I've already told you in a earlier video why I prefer those cabins, but I will talk a bit more about my cabin on deck 5, because I had a balcony cabin on deck 5 in my next video, and of course I'm going to show you the cabin as well. Here we are at the end of the promenade, and there is the outdoor area of the Buffalo Steakhouse, and we're heading to the other side now. Behind me there are only cabins, so we can skip that part. And here on the right we have the Rossini. Rossini is the best restaurant on board. It's a fine dining restaurant with fantastic food, but here on the Prima it's in a pretty weird location, to be honest, because it is basically an inside restaurant. There are no windows, they are just those fake windows, let's call them fake windows, with a view to the hallway next to the restaurant. So there's no ocean view, which is a bit sad for the most luxurious restaurant on board. On the other ships of AIDA, there's always a nice view of the ocean from the Rossini restaurant, but here on the Prima there is no view at all, so that's a bit disappointing. So I'm not sure why they chose this location for the best restaurant on board. But of course the food is fantastic there as well, and I can still highly recommend going there. And in my second vlog you will also see why, because there I'm showing you the food. Right next to it we have the Sushi Bar, which is another restaurant which is not included, just like the Rossini. So here you have to pay for food and for drinks. It's a specialty restaurant. And right next to it, we are back in the Theatrium. Now we are on the third and highest deck of the Theatrium. Also from here you have quite good views as long as you get one of those seats directly in the Theatrium. From the seats around it, there's basically no view at all, except for on the screens, of course. But as you can see from the seating areas that are actually directly part of the Theatrium, you have a quite nice view also from up here. And we are continuing our tour. Here in the Theatrium on the third deck we have another bar, of course. That's the Sunset Bar, which is serving the drinks for the Theatrium area here on deck 8. And behind the bar we have the AIDA Lounge. AIDA Lounge is a lounge exclusively reserved for the guests who've booked one of the expensive suites on board, so I have no access to this bar. I really like that it's not in the best location of the ship, so guests that have booked a suite do have their private area, which is nice and calm. But for me as a passenger who didn't book a suite, I do not have the feeling that I'm missing the best part of the ship. On some other ships it's the only inside area with a view over the ship's bow. Here it's located in the center of the ship, so I'm not really missing something up, but when I book a suite I still have my private area, which is quite nice. We went through the Theatrium in the meantime and we are now on the other side of the ship. We are now on the starboard side of the ship, and here we have the Vinothek. This is the wine bar on board with 2 seating areas. Here I can try some nice wines, conveniently located directly in front of the Buffalo Steakhouse, so perfect for a drink before having dinner there. Buffalo Steakhouse is another specialty restaurant. It's not included. You have 2 options. You can either book a menu in advance. There you can save some money, but you have a fixed menu, or you can order a la carte. If you order a la carte, it can actually be more expensive than the Rossini, which is the best restaurant, because here you have to pay for every single part, and in Rossini you book a fixed menu. But also the steakhouse is quite nice, and we will see it in my video. Here on the right side there's a smoking area. We can skip that, it's just an outer area where you're allowed to smoke, and we can head on to the front of the ship, and here we have the Body and Soul Spa. As always, it's not possible to show the spa area in my ship tour because it's still closed, and as soon as it opens it's not allowed to film in there. But now you know where it is located, and that also means that we have now seen all public areas on the lower decks. We can now skip decks 9, 10, 11 and 12, so we're directly continuing at deck 14 because there's no deck 13 as it is the unlucky number in Germany. So we're on deck 14 now, and here we can see the typical hallway of the AIDAprima. And there's one thing that was a bit confusing to me, so it's quite important to know. On most cruise ships you're taking a look at the last number of the cabins to know whether it's on a port side or on the starboard side. It's usually an even side and an uneven side. That's partly also the case here on the AIDAprima, but you do not have to look at the last number, but at the number in the middle of the cabin number. So the first 2 digits are the number of the deck. That's the same like on all other cruise ships. But then the number behind that, so the second or the third number, depending on whether you're on, for example, deck 8 or deck 10, the digit behind the deck number, that number is either 1 or 3, then it's on the uneven side, or 2 or 4, then it's on the even side. So for example, there's the cabin 12223. Usually that cabin would be on the uneven side, but this cabin actually is on the even side of the ship because it's 12 means deck 12, and then number 2 means even, and then it's cabin 23. So it is cabin 23 on the even side of the ship. That is pretty confusing, to be honest, and got me walking in the wrong direction quite a few times until I actually got it, because it's different than on most other cruise ships. So it's just quite important to know. Take a look at the number after the deck number, and then you know whether it's the even or uneven side. In the meantime, we've walked past the kids and teens area and the Fuego restaurant, which we will see later on again, and we have just been at the AIDA Racer, which are the water slides on board. There are 2 big water slides, and there's also a small gaming area, and that's already part of the 4 Elements. 4 Elements is the pool area for kids and teens mainly. Here we have a big pool And here we have the smaller areas for kids and teens mainly. For example, there is a lazy river. I personally love lazy rivers, so even though it's intended for kids, of course, I can also use it, and I think it's very relaxing to go a few rounds in a lazy river. So some parts of the 4 elements are for everybody, but other parts like this small slide here are just for children. The 2 big water slides are of course also for everybody. Those 2 slides are basically the same. So they are actually races you can race with friends. If you're starting the same time, you can have a little race there. That's quite nice. Here on the left side, we have the reception of the 4 elements. And here we can see the Fuego restaurant again. Fuego restaurant is the restaurant for kids and teens. At least that's the main target group, but it's also open for everybody. It's also quite popular by grown-ups because there you can get burger and pizzas, which of course not only children love. It comes with an indoor and an, let's call it, outdoor seating area. It's not really an outdoor seating area, but you can sit either inside the restaurant or outside in the 4 elements. The 4 elements is an indoor area. It's completely covered with a glass roof. It's not a retractable roof, so it's always an indoor area. As I said, the 4 elements is mainly for kids and teens, so it can be a bit noisy in here. But of course, there are also some parts for grown-ups, like nice sun lounges. They are of course mainly interesting for families, but there's also this big screen where you can, for example, watch some football games, and then you have this seating area where you have perfect view of the screen. So of course that's also interesting for everybody. Here on the right side we can see the big screen, and here in front of it we have a small area for the smallest kids, a small slide for small kids. And then we have the lazy river again, so it takes around 2 or 3 minutes to go 1 round in the lazy river, but of course you can take as much rounds as you want. Usually it's not too busy. If you're in this area but you preferred a little bit less busy and noisy, there's a small hidden area if you go up those stairs. From here you have the good view of the screen, as I mentioned before. For example, if there's a football game, they can show it here. You can sit down here and you have a nice view. You can see this view also on the picture, so that's quite nice of course. But you can go even higher. If you go up these stairs, there's a little hidden area with sun lounges. And of course you're still gonna have the noises from the playing kids all around the 4 elements. But here are probably no kids running past you, so it's still a bit of a quieter area. So a little tip maybe to also use this area. And of course also from here you have a quite nice view. You can also watch the people going through the climbing park here. The entrance to the climbing park is on the other side. We will see that later on. So now we're heading back down into the main part of the 4 elements, and we can take a look at the last remaining part we haven't seen yet, and that is the 5th element. 5th element, this is the bar, and of course this bar is taking care of the drinks here in the 4 elements area. Usually from here you can head outside, but in the winter season that was closed, so they can keep the warm air inside. So of course that's quite useful to keep those doors closed. Also 1 deck above there would be an exit. That was also closed, and 1 deck above from here we would have the access to the climbing park. So if you go up those stairs here, there is the entrance, but of course it was still closed early in the morning. So now I have to use a little trick. I'm heading to the panoramic elevator, going up 1 deck, and from there I can head back down the stairs, and now I'm at the outside area that I couldn't access through the door just a few seconds ago. Here we can see that. From here you also have a fantastic view down to the lanai bar and over the stern wave of the ship. Also quite nice location. Of course that's also quite nice in summer when you can just quickly access this area from the 4 elements. We can now head back up to deck 15. Here we have the jogging track, and there is a unique part of the ship. This is the Skywalk. The Skywalk is a quite nice area which you can only find on AIDAprima and Plaza. From here you have a glass floor. You can take a look all the way down to the promenade and to the ocean. So you shouldn't be afraid of heights, or if you're afraid of heights you will get some adrenaline here. But also from here you have the nicest view. So if you want to take some pictures on which you can clearly see that you're on a cruise ship, this is the place to go. Also for going through a fjord or leaving a port, this is a very nice location. It's available on both sides, and in the middle of it there is the panoramic elevator, which we will take at the end of the video. Now we're following the jogging track all the way to the middle of the ship, and now we're coming to the beach club, which is one of the center points of the ship on the upper decks, with the biggest pool on board, which is surprisingly big, bigger than on other AIDA ships. And quite unique is that it is an inside and an outside pool, so you can swim from the inside to the outside, so suitable for warmer and colder destinations. Although this ship is better for colder destinations, most pools are indoor pools. And now we're also coming to the point what I explained earlier on, why I'm doing my ship tour early in the morning. This is the location where you can get the first coffee in the morning, so already at 6 o'clock it was pretty busy, and now I have to blur a lot of people. Doesn't look so nice, and that's why I'm usually doing my ship tour early in the morning. But here there was no other chance, so we're heading inside, and here we are in the beach club, which is the main part of the upper decks. Here we have the big indoor pool from which you can swim outside. You have a lot of sun lounges. There's a glass roof, and it cannot be opened. So this is an ideal location for a winter cruise, but when the ship is sailing in a warmer destination, it can get pretty warm inside here. So the ship is better in colder locations. Here we have a small bar, which is used for the first cup of coffee in the morning. And also when there's a big event, which is there almost every evening here in the beach club, it is used as a second bar. Here we can see the big swimming pool again, and we can now head further to the front, and here in the background we can already see the main bar, which is the AIDA bar. AIDA bar is the very famous star-shaped bar which you can find on all ships. This is the first ship where the AIDA bar is not located closely by the Theatrium, but up in the beach club. But here it's in a bit nicer location than on the AIDA Nova, where I always have the feeling that she is a bit cramped and hidden in a corner. Here the location is a bit nicer, but still it has moved from the lower decks up to the upper decks. Now we've seen the beach club, and basically there's nothing else I can show you here in the front part of this deck. So we can head up another deck. We're now on deck 16. Here we can see the upper deck of the beach club. From here we can get a nice view over this beautiful area. I really like the design. It looks like in the Caribbean with those palm trees. So it is a very, very nicely designed area. But once again, in my opinion, this ship is better for colder locations. For example, her sister ship, the Perla, is sailing in the Caribbean. There I think this roof might be a bit of a problem because you cannot open it. On other ships this would either be an outdoor location or would have a retractable roof. Here it's always covered. So I think in summer it can get a bit warm inside here. But for my cruise in the wintertime it was perfect. Now it's time to head outside and head up another deck, up to deck 17. And here we have some more outdoor areas. Of course there will be sun lounges later on, especially on summer cruises of course. And we can also take a look at another suite area. So the area below is only accessible for passengers that have booked an expensive suite. So here they also have their private sun deck. From there they have a nicer view over the ship's bow than from deck 17 here, but also from here you have a quite nice view. You cannot see the ship's bow, but you can overlook the front of the ship. As you can see from there, you can also take some nice pictures, and it's also quite a hidden area, so you need to know that it exists here in the front of deck 17, of course on both sides. So here on the starboard sides we have the same area in the front, but we don't have to go there as it looks exactly the same. From here we can also access the FKK area. FKK is a German abbreviation for the nudist areas. So up the stairs you can walk around nude. A lot of Germans do like that. And that's quite typical for AIDA Cruises, that there is a nudist area. It's in a perfectly remote location, so nobody walks in here without knowing that this is the nudist area. So you have a lot of privacy here. There's even a small hot tub available. So it's a quite nice area. Usually I wouldn't be able to go here with a camera, of course, but early in the morning I took a look and saw that there's nobody, so we can also see it here in the video. We're heading back down to deck 16 and then back down to deck 15 to take a look at the last public areas we haven't seen yet. Here we can take a look at the outdoor pool. the only pool that is located outside except for the smaller hot tubs we've seen earlier on the promenade, for example. And we can head back down to deck 15, as I said, because there are a few more areas we haven't seen yet. So we've already been at the highest point, which is the nudist area on deck 18, together of course with the access to the water slides. On deck 17 there's this viewing area on the front, and that's it. Here on deck 15 we have a few more public areas we can take a look at. Here we can see the Wave Club, which is the teens club on board. First part of it is an arcade game room. Here we can play those typical arcade games that you will find on most cruise ships. And further on we have the seating area for the teens. On most ships there's basically just a big screen and you can play some games like PlayStation, but here there's also a proper seating area so the kids can also sit down and talk to each other, which I do like. It's a quite nice idea to also have this area as a proper lounge. We can head back and we can take a look at the last public areas. We're almost at the end of our ship tour. Here we can take another look at the arcade games, and then we're heading back to the outdoor areas, to the outdoor pool, walking past it, and then we're continuing to the rear part of the ship. And then we have a sports court, which in the wintertime is used as an ice skating rink. Here we can see it. It's called a Winterzauber. On AIDA Nova it was a bit bigger, as AIDA Nova has more outdoor spaces, but also here there was a small Christmas market where you can get mulled wine, for example, small snacks, and you can go ice skating. In the summer this is a sports court. And from here we can head back to the Skywalk, also on the other side. On the port side of the ship there's a Skywalk, of course. You can take a look down through the glass floor and you can take this beautiful view to the front of the ship, overlooking all those balconies on the promenade. So as you can see, a very, very nice area, and as I said, good location, for example when the ship is going into a beautiful port. So now we've seen all public areas of the AIDAprima, but as always when there's something like a panoramic elevator available, we're gonna end our ship tour with taking a ride on the panoramic elevator. Also from the elevator you have this nice view, just like from the Skywalk. We're heading down now. We can go all the way down to deck 7 back to the promenade. So as you can see, also from the elevator you have a fantastic view. And now we have officially seen all public areas of the AIDAprima, and in my next video I will show you my cabin, and of course I will tell you more about the restaurants, the life on board, the food on board, and of course about the cruise itself. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Here you can see when the next video will be uploaded and the name of the song. I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.